Below the text and videos on this page, you're going to find this fun little sheet that I created with some drawings of crystals, and I thought this would be the best way for us to kind of be able to look at the same thing. So even if you have your own crystals and you want to create your own, at least for the teaching aspect, you and I can look at the same crystals. So we're going to talk a little bit about dark and light and how that will transfer when we start to paint the crystals. So I printed one out, and as you can see, I've added shadows and highlights, and you can already see like what a difference. They start to really take shape and form and start to look like crystals. So when we're going to shade the crystal that we've already drawn the outline for, but I want to show you how it all kind of translates when we get into color. So I've got a few here, and you can see, for instance, this one. So I didn't exactly follow the same shapes, pretty close, but I did follow the darkness to the light, and you can see how easily that translates even when we start to use color. It's still the same concept of I'm going to have a dark tone, I'm going to have some middle tones, and then I'm going to have a very light tone, and that is what is really going to give these shape and form and make them pop off the page. So the cool thing about crystals is that any way you kind of move this and wherever your light source might be, you really can manipulate this to have your light wherever you want it to be and have your dark wherever you want it to be. So you can follow what you see with your eye, or you can really use your imagination on this part. I typically kind of like to keep the facet that's in the front to be the lightest, but like the one that I just showed you, let me grab it here. So like this one that I painted, I used this whole side really as my lightest, and over here was my darkest. So it's really up to you how you want to make your crystals sparkle. But for this one, I'm going to go light down this center aisle here, and then I'm going to do dark over here and a mid-tone over here. Once I've got some graphite onto my paper here, I like to use these little bebop things that I think they're called tortillions. Stumps is another name for them, whatever they're called. You can also use your finger, which is kind of difficult in some of these smaller areas, and a Q-tip will also work too. So however you like to blend in your shading. So on this dark side, of course, I went pretty dark with my pencil marks. And we want to, I like to consider that these areas that are in between the facets, I kind of think of them as shapes as well. So when I'm going to show you the ones that I've painted, when we paint, we're leaving a shape in between those two facets. It creates a whole new shape between the two. So when you're doing your drawing, you're going to, on some of them, you're going to come right up to the pencil line, and then on the next one, you'll leave a shape in between there, which is going to make it seem like the light is hitting those corners and those angles there as they come together, and it really makes it pop off the page and look really cool. So don't forget about those shapes in between the shapes. And once I get to the lightest part, what I like to do is take my little tool here and grab some graphite from somewhere else. and just do some very light shading just to indicate the facet. So already you can see how it's starting to come together to really look like a crystal. From here, what I like to do is just start adding details. And to add details, I go darker in some areas, especially down in the bottom areas. I'll create little angles and triangles. And then as I move along, I may want to take some of the color out, so you can use an eraser to indicate areas where light is coming through, and just really get creative at this point with how you want your crystal design to look. And once you get this complete, when we move to the painting section, it's so much easier to kind of follow the template that you already have in place with your drawing. And plus, this is really fun.